Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and we love talking about creating special moments and memories out in nature. That's why we're honored to have with us Patrick Newman, CEO and President of the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. How are you doing?
I am great, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. When you talk about the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, long history, long legacy. Let's start with a little bit of history. Go ahead and dive in.
Oldest botanic garden in Texas, founded in 1934. The Fort Worth Botanic Garden, really kind of a Depression era New Deal construction project. Beautiful, historic. I think there's one piece of our history that people don't know, and frankly, half the time they don't believe when I tell them, but I'll tell you anyways. In addition to being the oldest garden in Texas, we are the only garden that I know of, and I've been doing this for a long time. We're the only garden I know of that used an elephant during its construction. So the story is the big reflecting pool that is part of our rose garden, it was leaking from time to time when it was first constructed. And so they were trying to figure out how to compact the soil. Long story short, they went down the street, got Queen Tut from the Fort Worth Zoo. She came down, tromped around, ended the leaking problem. And we now have the only botanic garden that I know of that is constructed with an elephant. So deep history in Texas, kind of a fun little side story there, but historic, large, beloved. Multiple generations have been coming to the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. Tons of emotional souvenirs have been created here by guests over the decades. And so just a beautiful, beautiful space that's been a part of Fort Worth and really at the heart of the cultural district and everything that's happening in and around town.
Absolutely. We were talking before we hit record, but my family goes there all the time, growing up in Fort Worth, myself going there all the time. So to your point, long histories and amazing personal storylines for individuals and families, especially, bringing their kids for generations. And so tease us a little bit with some of your favorite gardens in different areas of the Fort Worth Botanic Garden.
Yeah, so I mentioned the rose garden a little bit. That's the space with the reflecting pool. The rose garden is fantastic. I mean, there is a deep history there, and you sort of get that sense when you're in that space. Our Japanese garden is celebrating its 50th year this year, a beloved space. And I know I'm biased. I love this place, but it is probably one of the very best Japanese gardens in the country, and I have seen a lot of them. So to have something like that here in Fort Worth, that's been around for 50 years, it's a tremendous space. I mean, countless people tell me about how much they love to bring their children, grab some fish food at the front desk, feed the fish. I mean, it's just a wonderful space. And then there are just countless corners and little nooks in the garden where individuals can spend a little bit of quiet time. We have a lot of guests who come here really just to sort of unwind and kind of unplug from their regular life and the hustle and bustle of everyday living. And so lots of little corners and nooks, as I said, where people can kind of find a quiet respite. So many people have been engaged or had a first date or something like that here. And so the garden is the backdrop for lots of memorable experiences as well. So love the Japanese garden, love the rose garden. If you ask me to pick a favorite spot, that's like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. We all have our favorite child. We just don't like to publicly admit it. So I would be hard pressed to tell you, but I love everything about the garden. And goodness, it's just a beautiful, beautiful space. I love that it changes throughout the year as well. So, one day I might have a space that I think I've got to tell people they got to come and see this. The next week, it's a different space because the garden is constantly evolving, constantly changing with the seasons. And so just a beautiful space.
You mentioned first dates, weddings, special moments, special memories, but you also mentioned being a place to kind of break away, to have some respite, to connect with nature. Talk about why it's so important for a thriving community, a thriving city, to have something like the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. Why is it so important to have the Fort Worth Botanic Garden?
Great question. I think, I think this is why gardens have been around for as long as they have. I mean, certainly there's the excitement of exhibits and events and those sort of things. But I think there are certain joys that can only be found in nature, right? And those quiet moments can't be found really anywhere else. And so we do have a lot of guests who, who use this as their opportunity to find clarity, to find sort of mental, emotional health. I've heard from a number of guests who really struggled through the COVID pandemic. And this was a key place for them to sort of remain grounded, remain centered. There's just something in our DNA that connects us with nature. And so a space like the Botanic Garden, where you can come, right, and find those quiet moments, but also if you're looking to gather as part of a larger community, there are those events as well. There's something about nature, about being outdoors, that's written into our DNA. And honestly, I think people realize that when we go for a long time without getting outside or being in a space like the Botanic Garden, we start to get a little cranky, we get a little ornery. And so we have to find ourselves in parks and in places like the Botanic Garden to unwind and just unplug and reconnect with nature and right sort of the core of our DNA.
There was a merger in 2020, October 2020, between Fort Worth Botanic Garden and Botanical Research Institute of Texas. Talk about that merger and why that's important.
Yeah, I mean, virtually overnight, we created one of the largest botanic gardens and research institutes in the country. So two institutions that really have their own unique and incredible histories. We talked a little bit about the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. On the Botanical Research Institute of Texas side, BRIT, as it's sort of referred to. BRIT has been known in the academic and science world for years. It is one of the premier botanical research institutes in the country, and it really has global reach. We have research projects that are happening in Colombia and in the Philippines. We're about to kick another one off in South Africa. We are discovering new plants and collecting plants from around the globe and adding to the body of research that suggests that plants are absolutely critical to what we do. So BRIT has been a part of the campus. We kind of had this shared campus for years and kind of sister institutions, if you will. And then we realized, goodness, we've got depth in research, we've got depth in education. If we could add depth in horticulture to that, we've created the perfect three-legged stool for just a robust and rich botanic garden experience. So in 2020, as you mentioned, on October 1st, BRIT took over management of the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And again, overnight, we created one of the largest, and in my opinion, one of the very best botanic gardens and research centers in the country.
Very cool. When you look at the research projects, and as you mentioned, they're expanding and, all across different continents and countries, give us one, when it comes to the research, either one finding, one thing you're working on. What's something that really excites you when you look at the research side?
Great question. Let me go globally and then bring it back locally for you. So we're kicking off a research project with Kew, which is a renowned institution in the UK, in South Africa, and really looking at a particular family of plants that are they are mislabeled and sort of misplaced within the broader plant family. So really taking a deep dive into that plant family and sort of figuring out where they fit in the greater tree of life. And that then informs things up and downstream in the plant world. So again, we're adding to the body of research, the international body of research, and partnering with international institutions across the globe. I love that part of what we do. And it really is a way for us to be renowned globally. We're also treasured locally for a lot of the things that we talked about earlier, engagements, dates, events, those sorts of things. But we also conduct research and conservation work here in Texas and in the local region. So let me tell you really quickly a story. We have an exciting project that's coming up, and we had, in the planning of that, we had intended to remove an American elm tree. Nothing particularly spectacular about this tree. It's a pretty standard tree, until one of our BRIT researchers discovered that there was a beneficial fungus on this tree that had never been discovered anywhere else before. We've scoured the campus, cannot find it anywhere else. We've looked in Trinity Park and around the area. It is unique to our garden. And so to be able to have researchers that are knowledgeable in the globe, but also be finding new species here in Fort Worth, Texas, it's pretty unique that we have that breadth and that depth of knowledge. So globally, yes. Locally, yes. We're doing it all.
Let's tie that into sharing it then with education. And obviously, when it comes to education, it's the global side, as you mentioned, but also the local, providing access for students to come and learn. So talk about education.
So we see armies of school children all year long, and we love them, right? I mean, they provide a noise and an energy that we want and we welcome at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. We do informal and some formal education. We also go out to schools and do outreach programs. We've taken on through a new strategic plan. We've taken on a new, fairly ambitious initiative, which is that we are wanting to engage every fourth grade student in Fort Worth with one of our STEM programs. So that's not just Fort Worth ISD, that's the mini ISDs that have students in Fort Worth that are part of their school districts. And so we are working diligently to either bring students in for field trips, to train their teachers to better understand plant science, or going to the classroom and bringing our content expertise to them. It's really important to what we do. Education is core to who we are and really our past and our future. And I talked about the sort of that three-legged stool of research and horticulture, education being the other leg. It's so critically important to us as we fulfill our mission to explore, discover, and engage.
When you look at the future and all the things that you're building toward, what puts a smile on your face when you look at, especially 2024 and beyond, where you're headed?
So a couple of things. One, we're about to embark on a significant capital project, which is a 2-acre family garden, a garden that's designed for children and then the adults that they bring with them. The interesting thing about children is when they come to the garden, they always bring adults with them. And so we're designing a space for families, and it's much more than a garden. It really is an experience, right? It's an opportunity for children to explore, discover, and engage, and to really have authentic and instructional experiences in a garden setting. So there's interactive water features, and there's opportunities for them to climb and explore and make noise and sound and pretend and all the things that we did as children, and to do it in a space that is the garden as the backdrop. Super excited about that. That will be a wonderful capital campaign and a capital project that will really kick off in 2024 and extend for the next several decades as it becomes a favorite location in Fort Worth for families. The other thing that I'm super excited about is our Lightscape exhibit. We launched that last year. We brought 90,000 additional guests to the garden during the holiday season to experience something that is music, sound, food and beverage, really kind of a new holiday tradition for the community of Fort Worth. And we're super excited to be bringing it back again this year, bigger, better, brighter than before. And Higginbotham is our presenting sponsor, and we have much love for Higginbotham and the Higginbotham team. So we're really excited about bringing Lightscape back. Last year, we had about 13 installations, and these are international artists who are creating light pieces, right? And we had about 13 of those. This year, I think we have about 19. We're bringing back some of the favorites. Bluebonnets was hugely popular. We're adding 50% more bluebonnets because it's Texas, and we're going to go big. And then an area that we call the Winter Cathedral, which is sort of this tunnel of light. We had 47 wedding proposals underneath that last year. It reached a point where, we were having more than one a night. And we sort of joked amongst the staff that perhaps we should have like a counselor at the end of the tunnel in case someone said no. But thankfully, all 47 said yes. And so we anticipate that there were 47 weddings somewhere across the community earlier this year. So we're thrilled to be bringing Lightscape back. It's a tremendous experience. As I said, bigger, better, brighter than last year. Santa Claus will be making appearances. And we've really sort of ramped up with Higginbotham's support and their help. We've been able to ramp up what we're offering this year and are really, really excited about this year. There's a couple of pieces that are making their international debut in Fort Worth. So again, for the garden to be the backdrop, something like that, and to have a partner like Higginbotham, it means the world to us, and we're super excited about bringing it.
And I think when you look at what that means locally, regionally, nationally, and even internationally, just like you're talking about the international artists, but that becomes a draw for that sort of experience that becomes so special when you talk about a proposal. So I think there's a lot of cool things, family, individuals, dates, obviously, but when you talk about the event, the experience, Lightscape, presented by Higginbotham, all of that becomes an amazing opportunity to plug in and enjoy the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. So carry that into maybe one or two other events throughout the year that people need to go ahead and start marking on their calendars.
Yeah, so as we look beyond Lightscape and start looking into next year, it is an even year, which means we'll be doing Butterflies in the Garden, a hugely popular program. We fill our conservatory with butterflies and they're flying all around you at a time of year when it sometimes is cold and dreary outside. So I would put February and March on your calendar and look for Butterflies in the Garden. We have a couple of really exciting exhibits that we're bringing in 2024. One involves dinosaurs. So if you've got a budding paleontologist or just a dinosaur enthusiast, or you want to relive your best Jurassic Park moment, we would love to have you. And so we've got an exhibit that is dinosaurs happening next spring. Another art exhibit, plus all of the favorite things that include Japanese festival, which happens twice a year. We've got plant sales that happen twice a year. And then a new program that we started launching a couple of years ago and is really gaining some traction, and that is Celebramos, which is our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. We just wrapped that up. We've already begun planning for next year. So as you see, I mean, it's sort of month after month, there is something to see, something to do, a reason to be at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And so if you haven't marked a spot on your calendar to visit the garden, I would suggest you do it right away. If you're looking for where to find those opportunities, certainly visit our website at fwbg.org. And by all means, follow us on social media, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook. We're on all of those platforms. You can follow us there. Lots of exciting things happening. And our goal is to provide emotional souvenirs to our guests and to give them opportunities to find themselves at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And we think we've got a great schedule lined up for next year.
Absolutely. Touch on the different ways to support. So memberships, obviously corporate support, just like we talked about with Higginbotham. How can the community support your efforts?
Membership is a great way. We have a great membership program, and a membership allows you to get into the garden free for an entire year. It gets you discounts on things in the store and other sort of discounts on programs and those sorts of things. So a membership really helps us, but it also helps you. If you're thinking about visiting another institution across the U.S. that is another botanic garden, we have reciprocal agreements with over 300 botanic gardens across the country. So if you're in Nashville and you want to go see Chiquit, your membership at the Fort Botanic Garden gets you in, right? If you're in Memphis and you want to see the Memphis Botanic Garden, we have an agreement. Your Fort Worth Botanic Garden membership gets you into the Memphis Botanic Garden. So membership is a great way to support. As an individual, as a family, there's some benefits there for you, and it's a great way to support the Botanic Garden. On the corporate side, we have a growing but increasingly robust corporate sponsorship program. So I mentioned Lightscape and the wonderful support we're getting from Higginbotham this year. I talked about Butterflies in the Garden, dinosaurs, Celebramos, all of those things. There are plenty of opportunities for corporations to get their name in front of our growing guest demographic. A couple of years ago, before this merger, we were seeing 200, maybe 250,000 guests a year. We're over 360,000 last year. We'll eclipse that again this year. So the demand for the garden is increasing. The number of visitors are increasing. The diversity of guests that are coming to the garden is increasing. So for corporate sponsors, I think there's a great opportunity to get your brand aligned with our brand and get it in front of a growing and diverse audience of people. And then I think quite simply the best thing to do is just come out and see what we're doing, see what's happening. If you haven't been to the garden in a couple of years, you've got to come back. We've made significant changes in terms of infrastructure and new capital projects. We're adding exhibits, new garden spaces all the time. So if you haven't been, come back. If you need to get engaged, come to Lightscape. If you need to get married, come to the garden. If you've got children, if you've got families, if you're looking for something to do, if you need to unplug, I don't know how many more reasons I can give you. If you have a reason, just come to the garden. We would love to have you experience what we have to offer.
I love it. We'll wrap up with website, social media. Where do we go to follow the conversation and to carry the conversation forward and go and enjoy the Fort Worth Botanic Garden?
Absolutely. So fwbg.org is our website, has information about Lightscape, all the things that we've talked about today. There's also an opportunity to sign up for regular emails from us if you want to find out what's happening. And then, of course, follow us on all the social media platforms, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook. We're on all of them. We're posting all the time, sharing beautiful pictures, what's coming up, and some tips and tricks to survive in the Texas heat.
Well, Patrick Newman, CEO and president of the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.